This is an overview of the design cycle. The idea being that there are about 5 phases that you'd go through. The first being that you're going to establish a location, that you're then going to model the building. You're then going to apply floors to the building, which is your way of telling the software which mass form you actually want to analyze. You can establish settings, energy settings relative to the building on a macro scale. For example, what type of building is it? What's the occupancy? Or what type of construction is applied to the faces of the building? And then you do the actual analysis. So you would repeat that cycle later of maybe changing the model, applying floors, changing settings on a micro scale rather than a macro scale, and then analyzing again, and then comparing reports to see if you're moving in the right direction towards a more energy efficient building. So first step, all I want to show is that if you're on the view cube and you click on the location Boston, Massachusetts, set location, at this point all I'm pointing out is that the red icon is your project and you can move that to any location in the world. Adjacent to that you'll see that there are blue icons that are weather stations, and there's some information on the elevation. If the closest weather station, which is the one that's showing in the orange colour, isn't the appropriate one because of maybe a change in terrain, you can double click on the other weather stations to make them the active weather station. But the point is that the project has established longitude and latitude, and the weather station has gotten information on the local climate for you. Having established the location, and I want to create a building form. I'm going to do this by creating a mass inside the project. This is not the only way that you can create the building form, but this is a simple example. I'm going to take the rectangle tool. I'm watching that I'm drawing on level 1, and in this case I'm just going to make a surface as I draft. So if I snap to the intersection, and I don't even care about the dimensions, I'm just going to draw a rectangle and then hit escape. I'm then going to select on the sketch that I created, and I can use some options. I can either say create form, or in this case I can use the handles to drag it up. If you watch the levels in the project, you'll actually see them highlight as I reach that level. So if I wanted it to be the 4 stories high here, I can wait till it's highlighted. I see a green line that shows me that it's aligned, and then I can stop the push-pull operation, and I've now got a building form that is 4 stories high. Now at that point I can say finish the mass. So I was in an editing mode, and I've now completed making the mass form for my building, which in this case is only one mass form. Having created the mass form, I now want to let the software know what it is I'm analyzing. So I select on the mass form itself, I go to the mass floors option, and I check on the boxes that represent the floors that I want to cut through my building, in this case 1 through 4. I'm ready now to proceed with the next step. I've applied floors to the building, so the software now knows that I'm ready to run an analysis. If I click on the Analyze tab, I can go to the energy settings, and I can apply on a macro level parameters to the building that will be used to calculate the energy. For example, building type will affect how many people are in the building, what are the assumptions regarding lighting and equipment. I'll spell out these out in more detail in a later movie. Right now all I'm going to do is turn on the create energy model. You'll see that I can also do things like specify percentage glass or conceptual constructions for what type of materials. Now just before I actually run the analysis, so I'm turning those settings on, you can see that it broke up the surface to apply all of the settings. What I want to do is I'm going to say save the project as project Boston. Right. And then now I'm ready to actually submit the building for analysis. I've got all the building geometry and I've got the weather station file selected, and now I can say analyze. This is the first example I had seen of cloud computing. So here what I'm going to do is I'll rename this to baseline for my first study, because what I'll do is iterations of that design sequence where I go through modeling, applying the floors, establishing what my settings are. Maybe not always on the macro level, I'll be able to go in and actually be a bit more precise about what I want, and then running an analysis. But this will be my beginning point, my baseline study. This is submitting the geometry via the internet and using that data from the weather station to do the calculations. If I look under results and compare at this point in time, you can see I've got my project Boston, and because I changed the name it now says baseline, and that's the percentage complete. Now I'm going to close this just so that you can see that I could continue to look at my model and work on my model either as a mass form or with surfaces or as zones being really the activities that are taking place within these different zones within the building. So I get a notification, it tells me when my study is complete. I can click on that. I can look at this report. I can see the location. I see there's 131 people in an office building of that size, local utility costs. I'm not going to go through each of these just now, I'll go through them in a later movie. The main one I want to point out is the life cycle energy cost, energy user cost, which is estimated here and shows the value of over 30 years of over $1 million to heat and cool this building. And that's kind of the basis that I'll be working again. Can I bring that figure down to make my building more energy efficient?